So on the 20th of December, we're going to do a live event again after our success with Twilight. And this time we're going to watch Princess Mononoke, which is one of Hayao Miyazaki's earlier films. It's a film where a lot of his themes come into play. It's man versus nature. It's a film about a beautiful woman living in the woods, raised by wolves. Who wouldn't want to talk about that? See you there.
Hello and welcome to Celebrating Cinema, a podcast for the love of cinema. I'm your host Sophie, and I'm joined by co-hosts Kiriko,
Yo,
Tom,
Yo,
and Elliot.
Yo.
And we're coming to you from Love's brand new screening room.
Yeah.
it smells fresh in here.
Looks fresh as well, which Tom will tell you a bit about now.
It's a bit dark, isn't it? So we decided to completely renovate our third screening room, which was always a bit of the problem child of our rooms because we couldn't screen every movie here because of technical stuff. And the room is completely flipped and now looks like something from In the Mood for Love. At least it should.
It does. It completely. It's the first thing I thought of when I walked in.
No, you don't. Yeah, this reference is very subtle in the carpeting, but yeah, I'm really happy with this. 40 seats, more movies, more bums on seats.
Yes.
Woohoo!
And then the big surprise, of course, is because people kind of know that we were renovating this room, but the big surprise is that we're gonna have another screening room coming up.
What? Oh my god!
No!
Oh my god!
4 rooms?
Four rooms, not the movie. And that's gonna have 44 seats, and it's gonna be Blade Runner inspired with LED lighting and stuff like that.
Amazing.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
And when did these both open?
This one, the smaller one, opens on the 26th. This is the one that we're in right now, and then the other one
26th of October.
The 26th of October, yeah. Let's state that correctly. And then the other one is going to open probably a week or 2 weeks later.
Exciting.
Fuck
Yeah.
yes.
Cool.
Yeah.
Can't wait. Well, today, coinciding with the release of his new film, The Killer, we have gathered to discuss the master of the gritty, visceral, feel-bad movie, none other than David Fincher. But, as always, before we jump into that, what have we all been watching lately? Kiriko.
Well, I've been watching like hell a lot of films and like none of my friends lately. It's like, phases you go through. So I watched like a lot of films, but 2 of them really jump out for me. One of them being The Cell, which is a year 2000 film that I saw yesterday by Tarsem Singh, who is the same director who made The Fall, which is a little bit more known. And I was going to jump into it like ready for the fantasy that he delivers, but then I discovered that Jennifer Lopez was the main character in the film, and that just means like something very special to me. I don't know. Jennifer Lopez is like, it's like kind of magical to see a childhood hero.
Because this is her in her Let's Get Loud prime, right?
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
And she did Hustlers too, and that was really special for me as well. And I mean, she is an actress, but I don't know. And the film is fucking stunning. So that was like...
And fucked up.
I'm really fucked up, but like fucking like schizophrenia nightmare galore. Yes, go get it. It's beautiful. And I saw a recommendation that Elliot has been telling me for months that I should see it, which is a film called RRR.
Oh, I want to watch that
which is a Netflix film, and it's like 3.5 hours, and it's
the
like
Bollywood one.
Yeah.
It's totally worth it.
It's so fucking good, and it's like everything a movie should be, and it's just like, I don't know, it's like, it doesn't happen that often that you watch a really long film and you're entertained throughout the entire fucking thing. And that's what RRR does. Yeah, 2 great films.
Sounds awesome.
How about you, Tom?
I watched Sick of Myself. I think it's Danish, right? It must be Danish. It's Scandinavian. Sorry. Scandinavian film about a girl who tries to constantly one-up her boyfriend, her boyfriend is an artist making these weird ass stolen furniture art pieces, and he's very arrogant, and she wants more attention both from him and the people around him. So she decides to take these pills that give her, well, let's call it the worst rash possible. And that sort of brings a lot of attention to her. And it's this really strange, super typical Scandinavian kind of comedy that visually also looks a lot like The Worst Person in the World, but it's completely different. And the guy who made it is now going to make a film called Dream Scenario with Nicolas Cage, which is about people dreaming, or everybody is dreaming about Nicolas Cage. So I'm also really looking forward to that.
Nice.
That sounds like such a Nicolas Cage thing to do.
yeah. It's like, I think I'm going to screen adaptation as well when that comes out, because it's, his career, man. That's for another episode. Well, that's for the episode that we'll probably make around that movie.
Oh my God, yes. Hyped. How about you, Sophie?
Well, I finally saw A Tomato Tragedy last week.
Wow, what is that about?
The film that our very own Kiriko made, which I was very excited about. So I'm very, very happy that I finally saw it.
Where did you see it?
It was
torrenting.
No, it was
Netflix?
in Bar Benelux in Noord, where they now have a bi-monthly film night. But yeah, it was really nice having you there as well.
Thanks.
Okay.
Well, that's awkward.
Sorry, can't do
The
it.
artist is
Sorry.
present.
Sorry for bringing it up. How about you, Elliot?
I watched Serpico here at Lab. And it's by Sidney Lumet with Al Pacino. And it's about an American cop that's sort of wanting to bring justice back the right way of serving it, and sort of the only good guy amongst the bad rotten eggs of American police.
Corruption galore.
Yeah. But as Tom pointed out just before I went into to screening, Al Pacino basically has a different outlandish hippie outfit complemented with the most outrageous hats you can imagine any person wearing, and still looks good in every scene that he's in. So
do I remember correctly that at some point he's wearing this sort of Mexican poncho? It's so bizarre. Like, it makes it's like he's constantly undercover as this dude with a long beard and another fisherman's hat.
I mean, he looks good in everything.
Yeah. The movie proves that. Yeah.
My Japanese niece, who's 14, she's like obsessed with Al Pacino.
really?
She made stickers of his face from Serpico, like with the hair, the beard, and everything. And she put them on the back of her phone.
It's like the old school Che Guevara cheeser, but then now with Serpico.
And I tried to tell her, like, he's fucking old, and she's like, I don't care.
Do you have a photo of that?
No, I don't.
Does she listen to this podcast?
No, she doesn't. But if she does, I fucking love you.
All right. Well, Tom, take it away.
When I can't sleep, I'll often say to myself, you're going to step into your cave and you're going to find your power animal. A line from the scene in Fight Club where Edward Norton's character attends a meditation class and fantasizes of finding his power animal, a CGI penguin, inside an icy cave. Sometimes I'll even quote the penguin to call myself, Slide. That's how he sounds. When I count to 5 on my hand, I'll often start by counting on my pinky. Probably a leftover from watching Seven one too many times when I was younger. Morgan Freeman counts the 7 deadly sins like this. When I watch TV commercials promoting some useless product, I'll often hear myself whispering, you're not your fucking khakis. Or, we are the all-singing, dancing crap of the world. Quotes from Tyler Durden's fourth wall-breaking monologue in Fight Club. And sometimes, but only sometimes, I'll look at my girlfriend and think, what are you thinking? How are you feeling? What have we done to each other? A quote from the beginning and ending of Gone Girl. Only in writing this podcast introduction, I was once again reminded of how David Fincher is one of my favorite directors. A somewhat strange realization because I started wondering what that says about myself. His films being these pessimistic, somewhat empathy-lacking, meticulously crafted pieces of browns and beiges. And green, a lot of green, because David Fincher really hates pink. In a recent interview, he said that he hates pink because it makes people look healthy, and that, to him, is unrealistic. Fincher is, not unlike myself, an obsessive perfectionist, known for his, to quote Ben Affleck, relentless number of takes. His opinion is that if you spend $250 million to build a set, get the crew in and line up the actors, you better use all the time you need to get the best result. This obsessive nature can also be traced back to his Pandora's box of themes. What's in the box, you might ask? Well, if you take the characters like John Doe in Seven, Mark Zuckerberg in The Social Network, Jake Gyllenhaal's journalist in Zodiac, Michael Douglas's banker in The Game, or the fucked up couple in Gone Girl, his core set of fascinations seem to be concepts like obsession, social alienation, anti-consumerism, chaos, narcissism, and hubris. I'll hereby thoroughly deny any links between these themes and my own character. But it's clear Fincher has something to say about the condition humaine, and it's not pretty. His worldview, not unlike his color scheme, is bleak, grim, and gritty. And he also has an opinion about his relationship to you, the audience, watching his films. In a making-of featurette for The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, he grimacingly says, "I think people are perverts. That's the foundation of my career." Another key ingredient of Fincher's films are their endings. They're not necessarily unhappy endings, as much as they are almost always open-ended. For a man who structures his camera movements like they're a top-of-the-bill ballet performance, he sure likes to keep his endings loosey-goosey. He likes to keep us guessing. And maybe, while the world is crumbling around us, I'll do the same. Cue Where's My Mind by the Pixies.
Cute.
Where would you like to start, Tom?
Well, I believe you had a good overarching question you would like to ask.
I want to know the question.
Do we think David Fincher is an auteur?
Ooh.
And perhaps we should first define what an auteur is.
I read that he himself doesn't like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tom, do you have a definition of an auteur?
A definition of an auteur.
Yeah.
Okay. Should we do the whole OG story of where that comes from? Because in a nutshell, the auteur theory is a theory that comes from the French 60s Cahiers du Cinéma writers like Godard and Truffaut, etc., who sort of, by watching American films that were made by directors who were guns for hire, saw a through line in their work and started calling them auteurs. So these are like, for instance, Hitchcock could be considered an auteur because there is a clear through line in his works, in themes, in how he makes the films, how he has a clear control of all the aspects of filmmaking. So if that's the director, is the body of work. So the question really is there a through line in Fincher's work really?
Hell yeah.
Well, and that was this Celebrating Cinema podcast.
If we're saying that there is, and of course there is, it might be interesting to start with his early work, which was obviously commercials, and see if that through line is already there.
We could start with his number one first masterpiece, through which we can already recognize his authorship, his eye for beauty, his...
Is this going to lead up to Vogue by Madonna?
Yes! That's a beautiful music video. And you can really tell that it's Fincher.
Yeah. And very of its time, but also very Fincher in a good way.
Could you go explain why you think it's very Fincher in the way it looks?
Well, so Madonna's Vogue is, it was a big moment in history anyway, right? So Madonna is like the first person to sort of commodify or popify the idea of voguing, which was like something that only belonged to a minority community in New York. So it wasn't really considered as something attractive or known in general, I would say.
Yeah, side note, go watch Paris is Burning for context.
Side note, yes.
Side note, we'll maybe screen that in December.
Side note, I'll be there. And I think what Fincher did so brilliantly is that he was able to elevate the idea of voguing to like something fucking majestic. Like, so it's all these Vogue dancers dancing in between these marble statues, which are like, I don't know, they look like ancient Greek statues. And the dancers imitating their poses, sort of implying this magnificence and referencing to history in a way where it becomes like self-referencing, like, I don't know, huge. And then there's this sense of like super slick commercial vibe, but then that has a darkness to it and a mystery to it that is like, I don't know, the thing that I'm attracted to in his films in general is that you fall in love with the darkness, and that is what his characters also often do, which is already there.
Yeah, it's completely true. Yeah. I want to take a small step back because I think that his sort of, even how he gets there is really interesting, and how the things that he learned even before he started making commercials or video clips, and everything that he learned by making video clips and commercials is still sort of really present in his work.
Yeah.
Much more than it is with other directors who went to film school, because he didn't go to film school. He went to like this sort of, what do you call that? Open day. Like, and he realized that he really didn't want to, that he really hated it. So he found another route into filmmaking. And I believe one of his first gigs was working for Industrial Light and Magic, which is this sort of CGI, special effects company that made Star Wars and is run by Lucas. And then apparently he was the one who made the AT-ATs, the things that the guys, he worked on Star Wars. That's what I wanted to say.
Icon. Auteur.
What kind of things are you talking about when you say that you see these things still in his films?
So there's this interview where he says, like, I don't want to be just a director. I want to be the best key grip possible, which sounds really strange, but he clearly likes all the aspects, all the sort of
details.
Yeah, but also like other
Every
people's
role,
jobs. He's not just there to delegate or to tell the story. He wants all these aspects to function.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily, I think, by being this sort of draconic delegator of all these other jobs, but he wants to know as much as possible from every aspect of filmmaking. And if you look specifically at what he learned on special effects by working at Industrial Light and Magic, there are so many scenes in his films where you have no freaking idea that they are heavily CGI. Like, for instance, something like The Social Network is full of CGI shots.
Really?
Mindhunter is full of CGI shots. There are so many shots where they're like driving with a car to park a car at an airport. The entire airport isn't there. I don't know if that's his perfectionism or his knowledge of how CGI works and all the other things around it. There's a shot but then I'm skipping too much ahead. There's a shot in The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo where there's an explosion where you see the light reflecting on Rooney Mara's face. The entire explosion is not even there, but there's no way of seeing it. So so he knows a lot about lighting. He knows a lot about camera movements. And I think that, to go back, the video clips and the commercials were this super good playground for him to just, with a moderate budget, find solutions to problems and make them as tactile as possible. These short form films.
I found watching his commercials and music videos, he was almost even more experimental with them than he is in his films.
Yeah.
In the sense that he perhaps reined it in or was able to hone it in a more meticulous craft. But did any of you watch the fetus smoking commercial of David Fincher?
Oh, yeah, I think, I did.
Sounds
That's a long time ago that I saw that.
I saw him talk about it in an interview, but I didn't see it.
It's basically like a fetus looking like they're smoking a cigarette quite casually in the womb of a baby, in the womb of a woman. And
that was a Russian doll, suddenly.
I just saw it right in front of me.
But I haven't seen Alien 3, which is obviously his first feature, but I can imagine just watching from that advert, you see probably a lot of similarities, or can understand how he then got that job as director of Alien 3.
Here, in a world where the sun burns cold and the wind blows colder, a visitor has come. But not by herself. It started.
Come on!
The suspense is back.
And we have no weapons of any kind?
The fear is back.
Ah! Don't look back, dude! Run as fast as you can!
And most of all, the bitch. is back. Alien 3.
Yeah, of course he really hates Alien 3.
Yeah.
And I think the recent Empire magazine special that's all about him is the first time since the release of that film that he's spoken about it on paper, that he actually answered a question on it. Because I think that for years his agent would say, you can discuss anything you want except for Alien 3.
I read that he had said no one hates that film more than he does.
Yeah. There's a making of featurette where you see him grab so this is on set while they're making the film, and he grabs a boom mic, and I think he says something along the lines of,
It's amazing to me that Fox is the #1 studio in the country because they're all such a bunch of morons.
so the entire making of that film was, I think, the worst experience, well, he has ever had. And of course, this happens now a lot with these directors and it happened a lot with Marvel movies as well, where there are these directors who made a couple of films or they made a couple of commercials or video clips, and they get handed this franchise because it already was a franchise and get no creative control, but they get idea of creative control. And I mean, Alien 3 was completely taken away from him at some point. I think the studio completely re-edited, and we're going to screen it in the assembly cut, which is not the director's cut, but it's the amalgam of the things that are still there, or like material-wise, to sort of rebuild the vision that Fincher had. As a film, it's the darkest of the Alien films. It's there's from the get-go, you know that everybody's more or less fucked, which is different with the other ones, of course, where, well, they're always everybody is always
pretty
fucked.
soon.
Yeah.
I haven't seen the film, but even being so hated, would you still recognize it as a Fincher film?
On a purely color scheme basis, yes. But
There's a lot of green.
yeah, greens and browns. I think the sort of pessimistic nature of it is very much Fincher, but I think everybody can agree that his career really starts with 7, and that everything that he does in 7 is how that is your second film, and how that is sort of a cornerstone for the rest of his development is so odd. Every time I watch that film, I think like it's so bizarre how great that film is.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think, and we'll get into 7 in a second, that sort of, because he also said he hated doing commercials, right? Do you think
He did?
Yeah, he said he loathed it, which is surprising because if you watch his commercials and music clips, he takes a lot of care and with them. But I wonder if anything to do with that, being in that environment, pushed him more into the darker side of his filmmaking. Because you also talk about anti-consumerism as one of his topics, and perhaps this is the moment to dive in to 7 because it also explores the 7 deadly sins, right? And gluttony is one of them.
Yeah, and 7 is very much about society.
Yeah.
I thought it was very. I was watching this video about him discussing his themes, and he said like, and I thought that was a pretty harsh statement, but I thought it was very interesting that he said like, yeah, but in a sense, John Doe, he has a point, and I thought like, wow, okay, it's interesting that maybe he could only make that film because there is a sense of Fincher having this very pessimistic look at people are perverts, you know.
Yeah.
He doesn't. I don't necessarily think that people are good at heart. Let's say that.
Do you like what you do for a living? These things you see.
You have to wear blinders sometimes. Most times.
Detective William Somerset is looking for a way out.
You're retiring. 6 more days and you're all the way gone.
So how long have you lived here?
Too long.
Detective David Mills is looking for a way in.
We'll be spending every waking hour together from now until the time I leave. I'll show you who your friends and enemies are.
Look, I worked homicide 5 years out here.
Now,
Ladies and gentlemen, we have ourselves a homicide.
they're caught in a game.
No fingerprints and no witnesses of any kind.
Nope.
About the only thing we know about that guy right now is he's totally insane.
Where the price of sin is death.
There are 7 deadly sins. Gluttony.
You're going to come take a look at this?
Greed.
No one touches anything.
Sloth. Wrath. Pride. Lust. And envy. 7. You can expect 5 more of these.
Paint the picture for us. What is 7 about?
And set the location,
Yeah.
which is nowhere.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I really like about 7 is that even though it feels like New York, but also feels like San Francisco, or it's all these, the locations are filmed in such a way that it could be anywhere, everywhere, all the time. Like, why is Morgan Freeman's detective dressed as though it's 1940? It's this out of time, out of space environment. But yeah, so the outset of 7 is, for people who haven't seen the film, please go watch it before listening to this part, is a young cop detective gets hooked up with this older detective who's slowly retiring.
Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman.
More Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman. Thank you. And they get sucked into this weird plot by a serial killer. Describing this right now, this sounds like a horrible 80s cop drama or action movie, which it absolutely isn't. But yeah, and it's a gruesome film where they, over the course of a week, find these victims who have been horribly murdered, and there's a reference to one of the 7 deadly sins. So there's an obese man who's been forced to eat his own carpeting or something, and somewhere on the fridge is written gluttony. And then there's a lawyer who, on his carpet, there's written in blood pride, I think, or something like that.
Greed.
Greed, that's greed. Oh yeah. And that becomes worse, culminating in the scariest Polaroid picture 5 seconds I've ever seen in a movie, where for lust, there's the guy had to have sex with his girlfriend with this sort of massive dildo made out of a knife. You don't even see her. You don't see the murder. You see nothing of it. You just see the Polaroid being thrown on a desk. That must have been like 50 takes, because he loves throwing things on desks and then it's not good enough and then everybody needs to do it again. There's a video of Jake Gyllenhaal throwing a book on a chair next to him and he goes like, maybe we could do another one. And you see Gyllenhaal going like, this is the 24th take of me throwing a book. But then you see the Polaroid of the, what is it? Sort of dildo knife thing. And then a guy just sitting on a bed screaming, I fucked her.
And he made me wear it. Then he told me to fuck her. And I did. I fucked her. Oh God, he had a gun in my mouth. The fucking gun was in my throat.
Just thinking about it.
So what makes the film so special for you?
Could be just this really stupid film, but everything that he does with it is so well thought out and much more highly intellectual than how it would usually be done, I guess. So that I really like, because I do like detective stories and I do like neo-noirs or film noirs. And I don't know, it's handled in such a incredibly pessimistic, grim, but also very sensitive way. Like, one of my favorite scenes in the film is Morgan Freeman talking with Gwyneth Paltrow about that she's pregnant and that she hasn't told Brad Pitt yet, and that she's doubting if she wants to bring a child into this world. And then Morgan Freeman tells this incredibly personal story of him more or less losing a child. And then Gwyneth Paltrow completely breaks down when he says to her, like, keep it and raise this child and give it all the love that you can, even though this world around us is horrible. I mean, the movie ends, of course, with the quote by, I can't remember, but it's like Somerset at the end of the film says, the world is a fine place and worth dying for. I agree with the second part.
So you were going to say, the film obviously ends with Gwyneth Paltrow's hand.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Spoiler.
Sorry. But maybe that's also something that you could argue that is ongoing in not all of his films, but many films coming after, that this idea of delving into the mind of someone who sees the world as an extremely dark place or creates a very dark world out of the world that we live in there's a very human aspect to, I think, all of these characters, like all of these murderers, is that they oftentimes show the darkness of humanity through their killing, which is something that happens in Seven. Does it happen in Zodiac? I'm not sure, but Fight Club definitely has that element to it as well. Where someone, it's almost as if there's these men who carry the burdens of the pain of the world.
Boom.
They're like they're martyrs. Because what happens also, like a lot of his films end with the fact that these killers are found or like locked up, but you're left with a sense of emptiness or like it's not really satisfying because you still know that the darkness that the martyr was carrying is still there or something.
Yeah. That's what I wanted to say as well. Apart from this darkness being present in all his films, I think what makes the presentation so special, mostly for me, is that what you said, he takes a format that is quite known to the viewer and he changes it in a way that kind of takes away the comfort of knowing that format.
Yeah.
So in Seven, for example, the bad guy doesn't survive, but that doesn't mean that he didn't win.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'd say there's sort of like, it's quite mundane. There's a lot of action that's insinuated or referred to, and we're sort of stuck following them on their day-to-day lives. And there you see them wrestle more with the sort of monsters that they perhaps have in their own head.
Yeah, he's not interested in sensationalism in that sense.
No.
And that's, I think, by handling it in that way, even though you are very much aware of the fact still that you're watching a film, because his films are very cinematic, it does, maybe even due to the fact that the evil is still there or something, that it still roams there. That's the same thing in Zodiac, of course. The thing about Zodiac is, spoiler, is it still there? That's what the entire movie does. Like, where is it? It's there, but where is it? Oh, it's people. Oh, it's not him. Who is it? But it's still there. So and that makes it more realistic in a way, I think. And scary.
Like now that I think about it, it's like also, I mean, we're going to talk about this later, but like for Gone Girl, she's the martyr of women who need to pretend. And for the girl with the dragon tattoo, she's like the woman who hates men for all women or something. The woman who kills men for all women. Like it's anyway, what did he make after Seven?
One of my favorite he made one of my favorite Fincher films, which is funny because he is David Fincher. He made a often very much forgotten film in his body of work called The Game with Michael Douglas.
I love The Game.
And The Game is awesome.
What do you get for the man who has everything?
Happy birthday, sir. Thank you, Maggie.
I don't like her. So what brings you to town, Conrad? Everything all right?
October 12th. Nikki's birthday. This is for you.
Consumer Recreation Services.
Call that number.
Why?
They make your life fun.
What are you selling?
It's a game.
A game?
Specifically tailored for each participant.
John, chapter 9, verse 25. Whereas once I was blind, now I can see. Now I can see.
One day your game begins. You either love it or hate it.
Are you going to spend the rest of the evening prying at that clown's mouth?
Mr. Van Orton, is everything all right?
Ah, Mr. Van Orton.
Have we met?
I believe so.
Why are you following me? Find out about a company called Consumer Recreation Services.
They won't stop, Nick.
He's in on it.
I paid the bill. I paid him more to make it stop.
I need the police. Who's gonna break into my house? I need toys like a bunch of depraved children. They're trying to kill me.
It's just because it's
so
his silliest movie. Before we started recording, Kiriko, you mentioned Alfred Hitchcock. And Hitchcock, of course, everything on Hitchcock is complete suspension of disbelief play. Like he's trying to sort of find that sweet spot where you're invested and you're believing stuff in a film, but it's clearly cinematic bullshit. And the game, which is about an investment banker who has everything in the world, called Nicholas Van Orton. I have no idea why I have seen this film so many times. And he lives in a mansion, and his dad committed suicide by jumping from a building, which will, of course, come back later in the film. And he has this super loose, probably drunk brother called Conrad, who was played by Sean Penn. Almost like, of course, he's played by Sean Penn. And for his birthday, he gets a present, and it's an envelope, and I think it's already a key. And the key just says CRS, which stands for Consumer Recreation Services. And he goes to Consumer Recreation Services, and it's this big building, and there's this guy eating Chinese food, and he says like, yeah, you have to take a test, and then if you take the test, then you're in the game. And he was like, what? What is this about? Yeah, no, it's like a full immersive experience, and blah, blah, blah. And then he signs it, and he goes home, and nothing happens, and then nothing happens, and then nothing happens. And then suddenly there's a clown lying on his pavement before his house. And that's the sort of start of him being in the game and completely not knowing if the things happening around him are real or they're part of this sort of massive scheme of things that is trying to fuck with him.
Shit really hits the fan.
Shit hits the fan in such a way where I have friends who really hate this film. Because
why?
Because the way that shit hits the fan, it makes no fucking sense. Like if you take away your suspension of disbelief, it's like, why didn't he go to the cops? Like, why is everybody in on this? How
he does go to the cops?
Yeah, he
at
does.
the end. So
he hires a detective and everything.
Yeah, but it's closed off in such a way where it should be unbelievable. And of course, the ending is one of the dumbest things I've ever seen, but it's beautiful.
I think of all the Fincher films that I've seen, it was one of my least favorites. What? So yeah, it's a very controversial thing to say, apparently.
No, apparently it's not. No, there are many detractors from this one.
Two types of people in the world.
So yeah, I was gonna ask why it's one of your favorites then.
Yeah, because it plays with this. I think him not enjoying the game or him being taken over by his surroundings is in a way also what cinema itself does. And I think there's an interesting play between the narrative and the format that he's using to tell it. And there's this suspension of disbelief, wobbly line that he's constantly walking on, and the downfall of a wealthy man. It's just beautiful to see.
I read a good Letterboxd review that kind of summed it up perfectly. And it simply says,
excited for this.
This is actually the only way to trick a man into self-reflection.
Oh my God, yes.
I have a question though, because is the downfall real though? Is there an actual downfall in the end?
Yeah, that's a very good question because, okay, so spoilers. At the end of the film, he goes into this building where he suddenly sees everybody who's already been in, and I think it's the fifth twist where it's reality not being that, but it's people still acting. And he goes into a building and he sees everybody who was a bum on the street, or everybody was in on it, all these actors. And then he walks to the top of the building, and I think he shoots his brother, right?
Yes.
By accident, yeah. And then out of guilt, he jumps off the building. And what the film, of course, does there is like, oh, he's suicide, the same thing as his dad. Self-reflection, finally. And then...
Is it really self-reflection, though?
Downfall, literal downfall. And then it should be, of course, he either dies or he doesn't die, but he killed his brother. But no, twist again. His brother is still alive because the gun wasn't real, and he falls through the ceiling, and there's people eating there, and there's like a big cushion in there. You could say like, how did they know that he was gonna jump and put the cushion there? But he lands on the cushion and he stands up, and then Sean Penn is there with a completely blood-stained shirt, and he holds up this shirt. I think this is just the dumbest thing ever, and it says, It says something along the lines of, I killed myself and all I got was this t-shirt.
I was buried alive in Mexico.
Yeah, I
and
was
all
buried alive in Mexico and all I got was this t-shirt. Yeah. And I could just see Fincher going like, that's really funny. After all this, that's what he gets. But that could be the end of the film. It's almost like Matt Damon talking about the many takes of Jack Nicholson saying like, you could end the scene there, but if you leave the camera rolling. But then he talks to his ex-wife, and then he goes outside, and then he sees the actress who played the waitress that he's constantly being surrounded by in the film or in the game. And she opens the door of a cab, and she says, I don't even think she says, do you want to come with me?
No, he asks.
And then just White Rabbit starts playing.
He asks her for a drink, and then she says, I gotta go.
Yeah,
maybe come get a coffee at the airport. Yeah.
It's so weird. But why is that the ending of this film?
It was, I didn't like it. The
But
ending.
Why? Oh, but why didn't you like the film in general?
I didn't necessarily not like it. It just didn't grab my attention as much because during the whole film, I was just like, this is definitely part of that game. It's just not real. I don't believe it. And then only him jumping off the building part, I was like, okay, this seems very serious. And then that was also still the game, and it's just like, oh, I just jumped off the building. I was ready to kill myself. But, it was just a joke, and I'm totally fine now. And I was like, that is so weird, and also not very. It doesn't feel very Fincher to me because it just ends on a kind of happy note, and it's actually all good now, which his films normally don't really do for me.
And if you go back to what you say, is the murkiness still there? It kind of does that, because at the end you still go like, you're okay, yes, but you're still a wealthy investment banker with daddy issues.
Yeah. Normally there's this feeling of no one wins. It doesn't matter what the outcome is, but no one wins. And here it's like, well, he's still winning because he's still a millionaire. And
with more insights.
People now like him even more, even though,
Yeah, true.
From somebody who makes a lot of money to a movie which is about full-on anti-consumerism, Fight Club.
I want you to hit me as hard as you can.
And this is how I met Tyler Durden.
Hit me in the ear!
Wait, back up. Let me start earlier.
No, you can't die for insomnia.
What about narcolepsy? I nod off, I wake up in strange places.
Soap. I make and I sell soap.
Tyler Durden.
Hit me in the ear!
Well, Jesus, I'm sorry.
Oh, that was perfect.
Hello?
I haven't seen you at any support groups.
Found a new one.
Really?
It's for men only. We were finding out more and more that we were not alone. It was on the tip of everyone's tongue. Tyler and I just gave it a name.
Gentlemen, welcome to Fight Club. The first rule of Fight Club is you do not talk about Fight Club. The second rule of Fight Club is you do not talk about Fight Club.
You are not your job. You're not how much money you have in the bank. You're not the car you drive. You're not the contents of your wallet. We've all been raised on television to believe that one day we'd all be millionaires and movie gods and rock stars. But we won't. We're very, very pissed off.
Should we talk about it?
Let's hit it.
Okay,
What's the first rule of Fight Club?
We're not going to talk about this film.
Let's light it up, guys!
So when the game came out, this actually started happening. So there were these high class, you could go to a place called CRS, not really called CRS, but then something else was called probably The Game. And you would get fucked up for a month.
Because of the film?
Because of the film, yeah. It did inspire. And of course, Fight Club inspired fight clubs as well. So,
well, Fight Club was definitely like, there's a very strong connection with the game, right? Like, you fuck yourself up for fun.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, Jesus, where to start with Fight Club?
Let's get into it.
Yeah, where do you start with Fight Club? Well, is that the entire point, that you don't really know what that guy is doing? Oh, okay, so...
He's trying to figure it out now.
Great
Did I watch this film?
He does something with cars, right?
Oh, insurance claims.
Oh, yeah. He works in an office where everything is a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy. It's the Sims, it's him having a boring job, and he feels stuck in life with all this IKEA furniture.
What's his name again?
The narrator, yeah.
So, and to sort of find a way out of the mundane nature of his life, he decides to go to Alcohol Anonymous meetings and
men with testicular cancer.
Men with testicular cancer. Thank you. Wait, not thank you, but Jesus. Oh,
you're very welcome.
Yes. And the meditation class that I mentioned, and all these.
Just to feel something, right?
Yeah, just to feel something. Yeah, and if he meets Helena Bonham Carter there. By the way, love Helena Bonham Carter in this movie.
Yes.
Just like
amazing.
I don't like much of her quirkiness in other films, but she's so perfect in this role as this sort of sleazy, weird, chain-smoking Marla, she's called, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And then he meets a guy called Tyler Durden, played by Brad Pitt. Who, hot.
Very hot.
Insert Brad Pitt once again, who sort of takes him up under his wing. And things go to shit. Things go to chaos. Project Chaos, to be specific.
But it starts out as an underground fight club where strangers will fight each other. There's certain rules, but there's, in the end, no rules in many ways. And
again, to feel something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But like you said, it spirals very quickly into like a
movement of sorts.
Yeah. I was going to say maybe an incel group. I don't know if that's too far.
Well,
wow, that's a nice take on it.
Yeah. Yeah, in many ways, this film was also in recent years completely re-evaluated by incels to be that.
Really?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I have also many friends who they loved it in '99, of course, the best film year ever, and then gradually started hating it due to the fact that it started attracting these other ways of
reading it,
looking at it.
No, you can't hate something for the way it's been received. Like, it's not how it works.
No, but
I guess they're probably worried of being labeled.
Right.
Right.
You don't want to be. You don't. Maybe
you like Fight Club.
Yeah. I get it.
But yeah, I guess the crux of it is sort of men without a purpose in their, again, mundane lives, trying to find meaning. And Tyler Durden, who's this sort of flashy, good-looking, cool guy, sort of not a martyr, but he's sort of that Jesus Christ-like figure. I almost find that people sort of follow him without.
And spoiler, just a figment of his imagination.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's fucking sick.
Do we remember when we first watched this?
High school?
Yeah.
On a Friday, I'd watch films with a few of my friends, and before it was never very serious films, if you can say that. Sort of these classic blockbusters, and Fight Club, I think, was one of the first films I remember watching where I was like, oh, this is a bit darker.
I love this shit. Let me build a career out of this.
I want to kick the living shit out of somebody.
This speaks to my soul.
I'm meeting in my life.
Also Fight Club related, when I was in Mumbai, a man on the street came up to me and asked if I wanted to come watch a Fight Club style event.
No way.
Yeah, and I was like, yes, I do. Oh, Lord. But,
you went there?
No, so he then gave me his number. Weirdly enough, he said he worked for Netflix as a location manager in Bollywood in Mumbai. Very bizarre. And then he gave me his number, texted me an hour later to say, oh, the police have found out about it, so Fight Club's cancelled for tonight.
Yeah, you know, that's why the first rule of Fight Club exists. You do not invite random British boys on the street. Just don't talk about it.
in Seven, but also in Fight Club especially, the reason why you're so convinced of there being two characters and you don't see it is because of how immersive of an experience David Fincher creates with each character. I was looking a bit at his style, and a lot of it's to do with how his camera movement mirrors the character. So it will either tilt or pan or track, and but only in reaction to a specific character. And so then it creates a very visceral feeling of you're in their world.
I don't think I fully understand. You mean that, for example, a tilt is linked to a specific character and a pan to a...
No. So a tilt or a pan or a track, these movements will happen with the camera in reaction to that same character. So these three different movements can happen in a way to reveal a character's emotion or reaction to something.
Yeah, there's a very nice video essay online that shows you how he directs a scene from Mindhunter, and
which we'll include in the show.
First of all, there's only one shot in all his films which is handheld. Otherwise, he never uses handheld. So because everything needs to be structured, and even though structure you'd think that would mean that you can't feel anything, and sometimes there is maybe a bit of empathy lacking in his films. But if you watch that scene from Mindhunter, and he does this in all his films, he shoots like a long wide shot, or this is the situation. These are the people here. Then when people are talking, he has these medium shots, which are not a close-up, but it's just people at a table talking. And then only when something is important, he will go to a close-up, but almost sort of obsessively so. And if you know that and you look at other films where people don't use that same technique, where it's just very sort of structured, this is an important moment. You will now have this person's face much closer to you. You feel that you'll feel less in other scenes with other directors because there's something strange what he does with this obsessive blocking. That it's there for a reason to have you experience something that the character is experiencing, which I find really interesting, and it works really well. That's the same thing with what you mentioned about the tilting and stuff. It's just there to signify something.
Just to explain this blocking that you're talking about, you're talking about how he very meticulously syncs his camera movements to the movements of his characters, right?
Yeah, or just shot composition. So it's or how people are lined up in a shot. If they're very close, if they're further away, a close-up just really must be something that's important. This person is now saying something that's really important, so it's a close-up.
So like even when, say, in Seven, it's a good example of when the three detectives, so you have Morgan Freeman, Brad Pitt, and then the superintendent or whatever, and one will be standing and two will be sitting. The camera will move between different eye lines and to show who's an ally and that kind of stuff, and it's really smart.
That's why even the placement of the camera at the ending of Seven is really interesting because
and he's fixed.
He's fixed. So when you look at him, you're not looking down on him because he is in control.
And he did use a handheld shot there.
Yeah, true. Yeah. When they're running, of course. Yeah.
On Brad Pitt.
Yeah.
With Fight Club, the other thing I wanted to say is, so it came out in 1999, and I think he was almost ahead of the curve of sort of, I would say the 90s, 2000s was very much capitalism in its prime. People loving and admiring the life of capitalism. And like we've said, Fight Club is very anti-consumerism and shows sort of the sinister side of wanting and materialism. And I wondered, how do you think, again, he got ahead of the curve, or why do you think he was willing enough to explore this darker side of it? Do you again think it comes back to his commercials?
Well, let's not forget it's a book by Chuck.
True.
Chuck can't pronounce it. So probably he was ahead of the curve.
But he chose it for a reason.
He chose it for a reason, and he does. It's a serious film, but it's a less serious film than something like Seven. It's more playful, and I think he does that with a reason to sort of walk that fine line between chaos, anti-consumerism, and also just the hubris I mentioned, because there's, in the end, Tyler Durden also is a completely narcissistic, crazy man.
Yeah.
And also, I think it was just like the sentiment at the time, like alongside the other 99 baby wonders, like what is it, American Beauty,
Magnolia.
I don't know. There's like a bunch of like hot, like it's the
hot 99 baby
like,
boys.
I don't know. Just like a lot of these films have this sense of emptiness as well, right before the turn of the century, because. Yeah. You have to reconsider everything because the world might disappear.
The Millennium Dome will fall and everything is gone. The Millennium Bug.
Yeah.
I want to share one thing first about Fight Club that has nothing to do with what we've discussed so far. But I want to share a Letterboxd review that was just...
What is this? This is a Letterboxd review.
It's going to become a segment.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. Before I read this review, I need to tell something about myself first, and that is that for reasons that I can't necessarily explain, Michael Cera is one of my favorite people in this world. I am obsessed with this guy. He's just, I find him amazing. Everything about him is funny. When I think about him, I just become happy. And then there was this Letterboxd review that said, all I really want is a Fight Club reboot with Michael Cera and Jesse Eisenberg, where Michael Cera finds out they're the same person. And that nothing would make me more happy than seeing this.
Well, who would direct this? Fincher?
That's a good question.
I would say Curveball. Do you know Richard Ayoade? He made Submarine, but he also directed...
The Double.
Yeah, directed a film with Jesse Eisenberg called The Double, where there's two of them.
Yeah.
I think it's like Kafka inspired, maybe.
Can I throw another little curveball, by the way?
Yes.
Are you aware of the whole censorship problem with Fight Club?
No.
It's really one of my favorite stories. So when Tyler and Marla are having sex in that filthy house, you have this weird shot, right, where the camera completely like swirls around them, and she's like, there's smoke coming out of her mouth. Maybe the camera goes through that. I don't know.
Where it's really blurry. And stuff.
Very blurry and. I think it's half CGI and half real camera movement, blah, blah, blah. And then when she rolls off of him and starts smoking a cigarette, she says to him,
My God, I haven't been fucked like that since grade school.
Oh, yeah.
And
oh, my God.
And when she's just like, what?
And he looks in the camera and he looks at us like,
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
What was that?
But the thing was, when he sent the cut to the studio said, this is fine, but that line really, really needs to go. It really needs to go. We can't have that in a movie. It's gonna be rated X, and nobody's gonna see it. And then he sent them, over the course of months, he sent them new cuts of worse shit. And he just wore them down with like, and I think there are examples online of the things that she then said, which are, and apparently they are worse, that at some point the studio just said, just fucking leave it in, man. Okay, whatever.
Oh my God, whoa. Fierce. He knows what he wants.
Although, did he know what he wanted with Panic Room?
4,200 square feet, 4 floors.
Hardwood floors throughout, as many as 6 working fireplaces.
Oh my God, it's huge.
Yes, I don't know if you have live-in help.
No, it's just the two of us. Huh, that's strange. What? Is this room smaller than it should be?
You're the first person to notice. No one from our office had the slightest idea. It's called a panic room.
What?
A safe room. Castle keep in medieval times. Poured concrete walls, buried phone line not connected to the house's main line. You have your own ventilation system and a bank of surveillance monitors that covers nearly every corner of the house.
So what's to keep someone from prying open the door?
Steel. Very thick steel.
My room. Definitely my room.
Panic Room. Not my least favorite Fincher, because that one's still going to come up. But, yeah.
I haven't seen this film, so please tell me, what is it about?
Well, the nice thing about Panic Room is that it's just like The Room, very condensed. So so I think it's inspired by a film called Wait Until Dark, which is with Audrey Hepburn, and Audrey Hepburn plays a blind woman who's in her house, and there are two men trying to get something from her house, and you don't know what it is. It ends up, spoiler, being a doll filled with bags of heroin. The setting of the film is terror, but the eventual MacGuffin is...
Are you talking about the Audrey Hepburn film or about Panic Room?
Both films. So there's people trying to get into a house to get something. The eventual MacGuffin is super trivial. It's more about the suspense of can they get in. So it's Jodie Foster buys a new house with her daughter, played by a very young Kristen Stewart.
Baby Kristen Stewart
before the vampires caught up with her. They find out when they're viewing the house that the house has a panic room. And it's just a room inside another room. It's behind a wall, and it's these massive steel doors and walls that you can go in when shit hits the fan. A lot of shit hitting the fan in this podcast. And then, of course, shit hits the fan. Forrest Whitaker and Jared Leto, young Jared Leto with cornrows for some reason, they invade the house, and Jodie Foster and her daughter go into the panic room and have to stay there. But what the criminals want is inside the panic room. And it becomes this sort of cat and mouse game through the house. And it's a nice little thriller, but it's nothing really more than that. It has a couple of crazy CGI shots. One where the camera is going through the arm of a coffee mug or something. It's a weird film. It doesn't really work.
I read that he said about that it's one of his most more commercial films. Where it's more entertaining, less subversive like his others. Does it still read as a Fincher film?
It very much looks like a Fincher film. I mean, you could say that the whole obsession thing is there in the sense that it's people wanting something, and then
every film is about people wanting something.
Yeah, no, I'm reaching at straws here. But then the fact that what they want is just bonds, it's money. It's just like there's a box full of money
boring.
there. So yeah, but it's boring. But maybe that's the whole sad bad thing about it. I'm just trying to sort of connect things in his work to this.
I don't hate it. I really enjoyed watching it at the time, but that's a long time ago, because it's, I don't know, you get chills in your back. You have this feeling of being enclosed and being powerless.
Yeah, and Jodie Foster is a great actress.
A fucking icon, but it's not you've seen it and then you forget it a bit.
Let's talk about it and let's forget about it.
What's next?
Let's go to something which is way better.
Zodiac, 2007.
The video for George Michael's Freedom. No, it's actually there. A Zodiac, yeah. Well, I really love Zodiac.
Dear editor, this is the murderer of the two teenagers last Christmas at Lake Herman and the girl on the 4th of July.
I want you to print this cipher on the front page of your paper.
He wants his code in the afternoon edition.
Ray Smith, don't you have a cartoon to finish?
The Zodiac Killer has come to San Francisco.
Another letter.
School children make nice targets.
He gave himself a name.
Greek, Morse code, astrological signs. This guy's used them all.
I like killing people because man is the most dangerous animal of all.
How does one do that?
I like puzzles. I do them a lot.
Got any hard suspects?
About 90 an hour. I'm up to around 500.
You got 4 crime scenes, not a single usable print. You can't think of this case in normal police terms.
He's breaking the pattern.
Glenna said you were a cartoonist.
Oh, yeah.
What are you doing at a gun range?
I just want to help.
What are you, some kind of Boy Scout? Eagle Scout, actually. First class.
Well, I've been thinking.
Oh, God save us all.
There's no evidence, Robert.
What do you mean there's no evidence? You have him seen with the ciphers, the military boot prints, the bloody knife.
All circumstantial.
Why do you need to do this?
Because nobody else will.
Dave, you made a mistake!
Get away from the window. Paul, are you okay?
No.
Why'd you do it? You put your face out there for him to see.
Hello? Who is this?
Again, it's about a
serial killer.
A serial killer.
What makes it different?
Time.
Yeah, the longevity of finding it. But I'd also say that anybody could have been the killer, or that they kept finding
Yeah.
potential.
And first film based on reality, maybe?
Ah.
I would also say that it's because he's not necessarily focusing on the thrill of finding the killer, but much more on the bureaucratic process of a police investigation.
Mm-hmm.
And
Which
people
is-
losing their minds on that side.
Yes.
Instead of the killer who's lost his mind.
Which is, again, him not really wanting to sensationalize.
Yeah.
Just like in Seven, I would say.
Were we discussing themes of his and you said paranoia? This one's really about paranoia.
Yeah.
It's a very,
I think it also greatly showcases how great he is at building suspense. Because Seven has haunting images and scenes, but then the basement scene in Zodiac,
Yeah.
that was so scary.
People don't have basement here. I do.
I do, yeah.
And also, maybe one other thing that this film also delivers is that, like, films become, in my opinion, more and more realistic. Like, especially after the 2000s, maybe because it's closer to our reality, you start to really believe the shit that you see, no?
Mm-hmm.
And apart from the fact that this film is based on a true story, like, after seeing it, you really think that you know something about police investigation, which is like fucking silly. But you think you're like you know what they know, and you know how the process goes. I think that's also like admirable.
Yeah, I'd also say his ability to take sort of mainstay blockbuster actors and carve them into these characters, because
Robert Downey Jr., Jake Gyllenhaal,
Mark
Ruffalo, of course, the Hulk. And there's also something very interesting if we go back to the badness. What I find really, I always have to think about when they interview that bald guy who says, "I'm not the Zodiac, and if I was, I certainly wouldn't tell you."
Mm-hmm.
So there's someone roaming around who is an asshole for killing people. But the people who may or may not be him are also assholes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that because then you have that guy calling into that show where it's Brian Cox, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like who has somebody on the phone who probably is not the Zodiac killer. Who's like, "How do you feel?" And then the guy says, "I have a pain in my back." Like, why? It's like all these trivial things happening which are not helping any process at all. Like the world is not helping to solve this at all.
Yeah. Maybe that also shows the addiction that, I don't know what his name is in the film, but Jake has in the film, is this addiction to the mystery. So people wanting to get involved and just loving a good story, which, is the same reason for which the Zodiac involves himself, as well as he's also like a sensationalist and just wants media attention, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the whole martyrdom. Like he's also giving people a sense of purpose.
Yeah.
Which is terrible, but I mean...
Yeah, and we watch it and love it as well, so that makes us...
We're perverts.
Yeah. About what you just said, I feel like he does that in basically all of his films, where he shows us these people who we would normally immediately like term as being the bad guy, and then focusing more on how the world made them into that bad guy, how like the entire society around them contributed to them becoming who they are. I think he does that in literally each and every one of his films, where you in the end also somehow feel like you understand why they did what they did, even like, this is going way out on a limb, but even in Seven with John Doe, like, even though it's completely insane what he did, you do kind of understand what he's saying.
Well, the whole speech in flashback, the whole scene in the car when they're driving to the place that they need to be with, like the box and the helicopters and stuff like that. The monologue that he has there about that almost sort of taxi driver kind of monologue about shit and people are bad and change and nothing is better and children are dying, and there's some truth in that. The thing to do is not kill people and write greed on the floor in their blood. No. Dear listeners, please don't do that.
Something else, Zodiac was the very first film he shot digitally.
Yeah.
Oh.
How did that change the rest of his career? Anything to say about that?
And it's also one of his most CGI-heavy films. Because every time you see... Yeah. I honestly, I greatly advise everybody to watch VFX breakdowns of all his films because your mind will be blown. Every time you see the city, which is San Francisco, right?
Yeah.
That city is not there.
Stop.
And you wouldn't notice it at all. But there are these. He shows you how time passes, right? So he shows you that one of those buildings which isn't there gets sort of built up.
Well, that one's obvious.
That's one's obvious. But there's a scene where the camera just sort of helicopters towards the city. The entire fucking city isn't there because it can't be there because all the buildings would be different. It's honestly really strange, and it has one of my favorite CGI shots where the camera almost seems to be stuck to a car, and so it moves with how the car is moving, almost like GTA,
the
like
taxi
the old
cab, right?
That's a CGI shot, but CGI hasn't looked that
good. Oh, now that
ever.
you say that, I remember watching it and thinking, how did they film this?
Yeah, exactly. Well, the camera must be really high up.
That's interesting. Yeah. Okay.
But I do think that you see there maybe that some things are becoming easier for him because he can shoot digitally. And of course, I do think that this is where the making of thing of Gyllenhaal throwing the notebook on the seat. I think from that point on, he was just like, fuck it, let's do 50 more takes of this.
Yeah, I think Cate Blanchett said something about that in an interview, which brings us to the next film as well.
The most un-Fincher film of Fincher's films.
That before, when it was film, when they were shooting on film, at least you would have a little bit of time in between takes when they had to exchange the film as well. But now it was just going. And it was rough.
Curious Case of Benjamin Button.
My name is Benjamin Button, and I was born under unusual circumstances. While everybody else was aging, I was getting younger. All alone.
I like it.
I remember watching it, but I probably did not associate that it was a David Fincher film.
No, me neither.
I also liked it. It feels very tender.
It's his Forrest Gump.
Wow.
That's what I always think.
Yeah, good one. I think the story is just good. And it's a Fitzgerald story, right?
Yeah.
It's not necessarily the film that has I think
it's
more
story, isn't it?
of the concept of a Benjamin Button rather than scenes from the film.
Yeah. And the whole narrative or plot is that it's two lovers that meet, but one of them ages backwards.
Yes. Again, Brad Pitt.
Yeah.
Who becomes hotter and hotter and then becomes a
Careful,
The only thing I could think of...
This is what...
The only thing I could think of watching this film was that, because this is the first film he made with Brad Pitt after Fight Club, was that he first gave us the film in which Brad Pitt is probably the hottest I've ever seen him be, in Fight Club. And then he gave us a film where he's super old and ugly for 2 hours straight. So it kind of feels like
he becomes
balance.
really hot at some point, like
but
exceptionally hot.
You're waiting for 2 hours for it. I timed it. Yes, it was 2 hours.
I didn't like that CGI of the aging.
No.
Still, and it so doesn't hold up.
Yeah.
No. But why do we think Fincher made this film compared to it?
How does this film fit into his body of work? This one is this is the one where I honestly really don't see the...
No, me neither.
Because this is a film that's really loving and empathetic to such an extent that if it's placed inside his body of work, it's almost too sentimental.
Uh-huh. What is next?
The Social Network.
I need to do something substantial in order to get the attention of the clubs.
Why?
Because they're exclusive and fun, and they lead to a better life. People People want to go on the internet and check out their friends, so why not build a website that offers that friends, pictures, profiles? I'm talking about taking the entire social experience of college and putting it online.
Site got 2,200 hits within 2 hours.
22,000.
This idea is potentially worth millions of dollars.
Millions? You stole our website.
They're saying we stole the Facebook.
I know what it says.
So did we?
$1 million isn't cool. You know what's cool? $1 billion.
You're going to get left behind. It's moving faster than any of us ever imagined it would.
Let's sue him in federal court.
I can't wait to stand over your shoulder and watch you write as a check.
If you guys were the inventors of Facebook, you'd have invented Facebook.
Is there anything that you need to tell me?
Your actions could have permanently destroyed everything I've been working on. We have been working on. Did you like being a joke? Do you want to go back to that? Mark!
This is our time.
You're being accused of intentionally breaching security, violating copyrights, violating individual privacy.
Your best friend is suing you for $600 million.
As for the charges, I believe I deserve some recognition from this board.
Do you love it?
Yeah.
Yeah?
How can you love this?
No, you can't.
Do you like it?
I think the dialogue is some of the best.
Yeah,
of
it's good
that
dialogue.
Aaron Sorkin, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. The master of dialogue.
And the editing.
Great casting, because Jesse Eisenberg to me always feels like a dick.
Yeah.
I saw an interview with
It's no
David
Michael
Fincher.
Cera.
Michael Cera. You make me so happy. I saw an interview with David Fincher where he said that Andrew Garfield initially read for Mark Zuckerberg. And then they saw Jesse Eisenberg and were immediately like, this is the guy. And he asked Andrew Garfield to read for Eduardo, and he didn't really understand why. And David Fincher said that, like, the talent of Andrew Garfield is to really make a connection with his audience, to some sort of like emotional connection where you feel empathy, which he really did not need for Mark Zuckerberg. So that's why he was like, "You're not the right one for this for this part."
And so obviously it's the story of Facebook and how Mark Zuckerberg created Facebook, but along the way questioned me whether he stole the idea from the Winklevoss.
Yeah, and why,
twins.
and also why he created the Facebook.
Yeah.
Because what I love about this film is this is just a guy who made a multi-million-dollar platform because his girlfriend broke up with him.
Yeah.
Yep.
This is pretty much it, because Rooney Mara is just going like, "Fuck you, man."
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's the start, the petty start of this.
Was it Face Swap or something that he did first, where you would rate?
Yeah, and then it's called the Facebook, I think. Yeah, it's you rate your fellow students.
Yeah.
Some insults bullshit.
Yeah. Shout out to Justin Timberlake.
Oh my God, yes.
Yeah.
He also shot
Suit and Tie.
Suit and Tie, which was that before that or after that?
After. Amazing song.
Amazing song.
Okay, were we going to talk about the girl?
Yes,
Yeah,
that's
we've
my
got to.
favorite.
We've
Okay.
got
Is that
to.
your favorite, really?
That's my favorite.
I need your help. You come stay on the island. A way of avoiding all those people you might want to avoid right now. You will be investigating thieves, misers, bullies, the most detestable collection of people that you will ever meet. My family. This is Harriet. Someone in the family murdered Harriet, and for the past 40 years has been trying to drive me insane. Those are from her, and the rest from her killer.
You failed to adapt to 4 foster homes. Were arrested twice for intoxication, twice for assault. How many partners have you had in the last month? And how many of those were men?
I should have control of my money.
And you will, once you learn to be sociable. Why don't we start with me? You know what to do.
I can't find something you've been unable to find in 40 years.
You don't know that. You have a very keen, investigative mind.
You were here that day.
A terrible day. Searching, not finding.
I never found a body. Was it spontaneous? Was it calculated? Did she know something someone wished she didn't?
The last time I reported on something without being absolutely sure, I lost my life savings.
I need a research assistant.
I know an excellent one. She did the background check on you.
The what?
You don't think we could hire just anyone for something like this?
It's Mikhail Blomqvist. May I come in? We need to talk.
Hey, who do you think you are?
Put some clothes on. Get rid of your girlfriend. Can I call you Elizabeth? I want you to help me catch a killer of women. I've got absolutely no idea how they're connected to the death of a 16-year-old girl. Don't you need to look over these?
I got it.
It's better to look at what I am about to show you on an empty stomach.
What are you doing?
Reading your notes?
They're encrypted.
Please.
Rape, torture, fire, animals, religion. Am I missing anything?
The names. I may have something.
Nobody likes people poking around in their lives.
Everybody knows why you're here. Someone killed her. Someone on the island that day.
If a woman approaches any beast and lies with it, you shall kill the woman and the beast.
These people are insane.
Soon you will know us all, only too well, with my apologies.
Is that your favorite, really? Wow.
Yes.
So did you watch it
Gone
when,
Girl.
because context, this came out, I think 2 years or 3 years after the original Millennium series was shot. And that's what's the writer again? Stieg Larsson, right?
Yeah.
The Scandinavian, Swedish crime. You see, I don't know where these countries are. Swedish crime novelist who was such a hype, and then suddenly everything was a Scandinavian crime thriller series and movie. And suddenly Fincher made a remake or reshot a book. I remember it coming out and I was like, huh?
It was a book first, right? And it was a
Yeah.
massive
A
hype
book
at
called
the time.
Men Hate Women.
Millennium.
No, Men Hate Women, right?
The series was called Millennium.
okay,
and then,
okay.
Yeah.
And the actual book was called Man Hate Women.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
You would think it's like women hate men, but
So the girl with the dragon tattoo.
the girl with the dragon tattoo.
What is it about? I haven't seen it because there were such trigger warnings that I was like,
Yes.
I'm not going to do this.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so the girl with the dragon tattoo, it's about another police investigation of
course. Surprise.
Dun, dun, dun.
of the British dude who's James Bond.
Daniel Craig.
Daniel Craig.
British dude who is James Bond.
Not anymore.
Yeah. He's nobody now.
He was the last James Bond, and before that, he is hired by like one of the richest people in, where is it? Somewhere in Scandinavia.
Sweden.
To investigate the disappearance of his 16-year-old, not daughter, but the daughter of his brother. And she disappeared like 40 years ago. And he goes into it, and then he is assisted by a girl with a dragon tattoo who's like this punk rock chick who is basically not allowed. How do you call that when you're not like allowed to function normally in society and you need to?
Not allowed?
Yeah, basically she tried to kill her father when she was 14, and therefore she's not in a mental institution, but she's like, she has a guardian, and she's not allowed to spend money in a normal way.
Okay.
But she's like a top investigator of a lot. Well, she's into like computer stuff. And the two of them go to search for this girl, and they both have their own motives. Daniel Craig is like recently affected by a sort of scandal that he did a wrong investigation as a journalist, and is therefore like sort of slaughtered by media. And then the girl wants to find the man killer of this woman, because she hates men for very obvious reasons that I'm not gonna give away. And it's sort of their journey together and they coming closer to each other, but then also their trauma standing in between their relationship. And I think what's so great about this film is and you have that with Gone Girl as well. David Fincher goes into like something that is quite dangerous, I would say, which is how women take revenge on pain that has been caused by men, but the revenge that they do is oftentimes way worse. Well, I wouldn't be able to say that, but it's like severe compared to what has been done to them, which is also severe. But that's, a sentiment that you don't necessarily want to encourage, but you understand it so well in the way that he portrays it, because you sort of, it's basically like pain causing more pain.
I think you're touching on it there, and we'll go to Gone Girl after, but I think it's also interesting you say it's perhaps more violent, a lot more gory and graphic and physical, but I think he's almost creating a similarity to something that the female reaction to the violence that has been inflicted on them is often a lot more violent and visceral and graphic. But then I think in some ways that's him trying to perhaps show that pain that was once put onto them that you can't necessarily see directly because there isn't necessarily blood everywhere or body parts being ripped apart. Or do you understand what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And I think that is interesting in the sense it gives you almost a better understanding of some degree of the pain that these female martyrs are having to carry.
Yeah. And strangely, the physical manifestation of their revenge is more intense to look at than the pain that has been done to them, because that's a form of pain that you see a lot, or at least it's, it's common societal
it's normalized,
problems,
right?
Mm-hmm.
And therefore,
you
can just, you're not affected by it as intensely.
And then I would also say that at least for Gone Girl, but probably for the girl with the dragon tattoo as well, that kind of the backlash to the violence that these women are exacting, where at least for Gone Girl, people are just writing, what's her name again? Amy off as just a psychopath. Just writing them off, totally glossing over the fact that they are still victims and there was still like harm done to them as well, and that what they did was a reaction to something.
Hold on. First, wait. That's because we should move on to Gone Girl. Best use of Enya's Sail Away in any movie ever. Okay?
Don't let that be forgotten.
Okay. The girl with the dragon tattoo. Just, Enya. I want to have that song on my funeral, but not referencing that scene in The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo.
Nick Dunn, you're probably the most hated man in America right now. Did you kill your wife, Nick?
Everyone told us marriage is hard work. Not for me and Nick.
As you all know, my wife, Amy Elliott Dunn, disappeared 3 days ago. I had nothing to do with the disappearance of my wife. I have nothing to hide.
Has Amy got friends we can talk to?
No, not really.
You don't know if she has friends, you don't know what she does all day, and you don't know your wife's blood type.
Just being a good guy, so everybody can see him being a good guy.
Well, you really don't like him, do you?
All I'm trying to do is be nice to the people who are volunteering to help find Amy.
I will practice believing my husband loves me, but I could be wrong.
You ever see that guy in the glasses before?
Amy is the kind of girl who attracts admirers.
Whoever took her is bound to bring her back.
I'm hoping you can tell me what this means.
Want to solve Amy's treasure hunt?
You seen this girl around here?
Yeah, I remember her.
I know you. I saw you at the volunteer center.
I wanted to help.
What'd she want?
She wanted a gun. We are all scared, but we are all here now.
I feel like something to be jettisoned if necessary. I feel like I could disappear.
The hallmark of a sociopath
is a lack of empathy. Amy lost a lot of blood in there, then somebody mopped it up.
Why would they mop up the blood if they're trying to stage a crime scene?
Whatever they found, I think it's safe to assume that it's very bad.
I'd finally realized I am frightened of my own husband.
I would show you, as if you're doing a deposition, what to say, what not to say.
A trained monkey?
A trained monkey who doesn't get lethal injection.
She's going to eat you alive.
You assaulted her?
It's not good enough for you? I hit her?
It's not even close.
Absolutely not. I never touched her.
We now believe Nick is involved in the disappearance of our daughter.
Without a body, without a murder weapon, their only hope is a confession.
Don't know anything yet?
You need to tell me.
How was your marriage, Nick?
Are you asking me if I killed my wife?
Man of my dreams. This man of mine may kill me.
What about my son, Nick?
This man may kill me. In her own words,
This man may truly
kill me.
You ever hear the expression, the simplest answer is often the correct one?
Actually, I've never found that to be true.
The victimhood in Gone Girl. So everybody here knows that's one of my favorite films, right?
Yes.
Okay, so yes, I really, really, really love Gone Girl. Also because it does maybe everything that Fincher does in his career and that I find interesting just in one film.
Mm-hmm.
The stylistic things, the man-female relationship that is awry and terrible and...
Love that.
Love that. Let's keep it at that. But I find it interesting to see her as a victim solely. Because what's interesting, I think the film does, because it also moves into that suspension of disbelief thing, or the play of what's real, what he does in the game and what he does in Fight Club as well. How much of her story even is real, you could ask? Because everything that you experience from her point in the beginning of the film is via her diary. Where does her diary really start, and where is the abuse? There is abuse. But where does it?
I mean, we know for a fact that he cheated on her.
True.
Yeah, but that's maybe
True.
the strength of her story is that her victimhood is like so regular, like everyone, like we are that person, you know, like you get cheated on, you need to play a character for someone else to fall in love with you. You play it cool, like that's what makes it so strong. Also, like that monologue, that shit has never been said before.
Absolutely. That is what I was going to say before someone rudely interrupted me. That, of course, she's not only a victim, but what I meant to say was that they give a reaction in the first place. This normal victimhood that you're talking about is so normalized that we expect women to not react to it.
Well, I was going to add again, it's this mental or psychological pain and torture that they're feeling or suffering from that again isn't as visible, and then yet you see a visible reaction from her.
Yeah.
She's batshit crazy. Like let's not
Let's not get that twisted. But but the way it ends of her back in his arms, there's something almost like that they're deserving of each other in some way. That there's also the moment right at the end where they're both in their pajamas and he goes off into the other room, but he's wearing all black pajamas and she's wearing white pajamas, which I thought was quite a...
Should we explain what Gone Girl is about?
Yeah.
Maybe,
yeah.
Because we're already talking about specific color-coded pajamas now. Okay, who wants to tell what Gone Girl is about?
It's your
favorite film.
Okay. Gone Girl is about a perfectly cast Ben Affleck. I don't think anybody could have played this douchey
Affleck,
guy,
maybe.
Casey Affleck, somebody else in the Affleck family. Nick Dunn wakes up one morning to find his wife not at home.
On their wedding anniversary.
And he can't find her because she's gone. The police think very quickly that he is a suspect in her disappearance or her murder, because clues are found of blood in the house, and they start finding other clues that she has left behind of something that she did during their marriage together, doing these sort of, what would you call this? Not treasure hunts, but
Little games.
Or these sort of rhyming texts that
riddles to solve.
Riddles to solve, exactly. What should I say here? Where does it go? Yeah, where doesn't it go? It's hard to explain because the half of the film is the story of her diary being read to you and those scenes being shown. And as I said, while rudely interrupting you, it's an interesting question of how much of what you see of their relationship is necessarily true and what happened and what didn't happen.
To tie it back to our initial question, is Fincher an auteur? I think this film shows that it does, or at least my thought process went. So I know Tom's two favorite films are Vertigo and Gone Girl. And then I thought, oh, whoa, Gone Girl is like the modern day Vertigo. And then I thought, wait, is Fincher the new Hitchcock? And then I thought, whoa, two big auteurs.
Wait, I want to say one thing about Gone Girl and also the rest of his work. Because going back to what you just said, to the ending where you feel like they kind of deserve each other, I felt that the ending was a little bit disappointing for Gone Girl. At first, I couldn't really place what I found disappointing, but then, of course, I turned to Letterboxd and I found out. Because I feel like at the end, you kind of are stuck with this feeling of, oh, poor guy, he's kind of settled up with her now. But apparently in the book, the film kind of downplayed what his part was in all of this, and that in a sort of sick and twisted way, apparently he falls back in love with her as well, and he really wants to stay with her, which kind of drives home that point of them deserving each other, instead of you're being left with the feeling of, oh, poor guy, he has to stay with her.
I think the book and the film doesn't do that justice enough, that the ending which is ridiculous, especially the whole, why would you have all that blood on you constantly?
Yes.
But I just love that.
Shower?
It's Hamlet. Yeah, and then it's there still until they showered together, which apparently all the blood needed to stay there so they can have this scene together in it. But it makes no sense, but still very nice. I think the ending is about marriage. It's what the book is trying to say and what the film doesn't, well, for me at least it does. I could imagine that the point is not clear enough. The ending of the whole, I killed for you, now you need to do what I want. It's marriage, what you sacrifice for each other turned up to 11 stupid. Probably is clearer in the book.
But I like your theory.
What?
Of it
that
being
it's about
marriage.
Yeah.
That's why I love it. That's why I like Eyes Wide Shut. It's about not marriage, but this sort of impossibilities within this thing where you thrust two people who are individuals together.
You become martyrs for each other.
Wow.
Work.
Wow.
I have a question to end this conversation with, because we've talked extensively about the darkness and the pessimism in his film, but do we also see just a tinge of like positivity, of optimism in all of them? I feel like I was never left with a feeling of, well, life sucks, let's just quit.
No, but that harks to the ending of Seven. That's the thing that Somerset says.
Ernest Hemingway once wrote, "The world is a fine place and worth fighting for." I agree with the second part.
That's what's in his films. I think there's a sort of acceptance of the world is not a fine place, but giving up isn't really the solution.
Cops are definitely fine people in his films too.
And Brad Pitt is hot.
That we know for sure.
Yeah.
I think that's a nice place to end it on.
That Brad Pitt is hot?
Yeah.
For sure.
No.
But what a shame we didn't have time for Mank.
Oh, next time.
Better get back to those dishes, huh? And of course, his new film coming out, The Killer, which is the reason why we were kind of doing this retrospective, right?
But none of us have seen it yet. It does have a killer tagline, which is execution is everything. which I love.
Love.
That's very Fincher.
Yeah.
So on the 20th of December, we're going to do a live event again after our success with Twilight. And this time we're going to watch Princess Mononoke, which is one of Hayao Miyazaki's earlier films. It's a film where a lot of his themes come into play. It's man versus nature. It's a film about a beautiful woman living in the woods, raised by wolves. Who wouldn't want to talk about that?
I would. Our sincerest apologies for turning this into a Fincher-length episode, but hopefully our conversation has made you eager to relive Fincher's works or perhaps witness them for the first time. So you can experience his films in full cinema experience for yourself through the Fincher Favorites program right here in Lab 111, starting on the 6th of November. Showtimes and tickets can be found on lab111.nl/Fincher. Has this episode given you a taste for exploring more auteur cinema? Then make sure you've listened to last month's episode, in which we question and discuss Martin Scorsese's highly influential body of work. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review on whichever platform you're listening on, and share so more people can find us. Make sure to subscribe and stay up to date with all new releases. If you want to join the conversation, feel free to send any questions at celebratingcinema@lab111.nl and follow us at lab111 on Instagram. As always, we provide show notes, including all films mentioned, at celebratingcinema.com. This was a Lab 111 production, edited and produced by Elliot Bloom, with music from Hugo Emmerzaal and artwork by Studio FFF.